Season 8 of Overwatch was filled with a lot of new competitive highs for me, whereas Season 9 has not been. And yes, I usually keep my Sisyphean comp struggles over on my Twitch channel, but because that boulder has been feeling real heavy as of late, I thought we could talk a bit here about tilt, how I try and prevent it, and my favorite ways to treat myself when I end up tilted anyway. But first off, what is tilt? In gaming, it's generally regarded as a state of frustration or anger that results in the deterioration of your gameplay. The term is also used in poker to describe the same thing, but supposedly originates from pinball of all things. You see, pinball machines have what's called a tilt pendulum, which hangs inside its cabinet and swings around if the cabinet is jostled. If the little plumb bob in the center touches the brass plate that loops around it, it'll give the player a tilt warning, which is basically saying, stop moving the cabinet so much, you might be cheating. Oftentimes, players will get 3 tilt warnings before the game itself tilts, freezing the flippers that keep the pinball in play and forcing the player to forfeit that turn. In this context, the tilt warning is mostly meant as an anti-cheat mechanism, but I would also assume that if someone were really frustrated after playing a few bad rounds of pinball, they might smack the machine around in anger and receive a tilt warning that way too, and thus appears a framework for understanding tilt as we know it today. Player plays game. Player loses game over and over, player gets frustrated, player is tilted. But we can avoid the tilt by listening to the tilt warnings, just like in pinball. Instead of powering through your frustration because surely the next game will be a win, take that emotion as a sign to step back and think, am I having fun? If not, am I winning? If not, am I learning? There's an old post from a League of Legends subreddit by this user that talks about learning and its connection to tilt. I think generally the more you play a game, the more you learn, and the more you learn, the better you can get, and the better you get, the less you'll tilt. Probably. But learning is a process, and tilting affects your ability to learn. But to understand exactly why that is, I'll have to explain a few things. This here is the hierarchy of competence, attributed to these NYU professors, which in psychology relates to the psychological states involved in the process of progressing from incompetence to competence in a skill. Level 1 is unconscious incompetence, meaning you don't know what you don't know. For example, this was me in Overwatch 1, heal-botting as Mercy without a care in the world for my positioning or movement because that's all I knew how to do, and I didn't realize that it wasn't impactful at the time. Once I recognized this, however, I moved on to level 2, which is conscious incompetence, meaning you know that you don't know something. In this stage, I learned that heal-botting alone on Mercy just isn't enough, so I tried to learn her movement, and I tried to learn other heroes, and although I was making mistakes, I could still learn enough to reach level 3, which is conscious competence. At this point, you know or understand how to do something, but actually executing the skill requires a lot of conscious effort on your behalf. I know how to use Mercy's GA to pocket a DPS, I know how to hit my Ana nades, I know when to throw a Suzu as Kiri, but it requires a lot of concentration for me to do so accurately and well. In theory, and with practice, I could probably make it to level 4, which is unconscious competence, in which you perform the skill as though it were second nature. I would equate this level to pro players whose positioning, aim, and ability usage are more instinctual rather than effortful, allowing them to focus on the variances of the game, like maps, team comp, and ult economy. I think overall, a lot of players exist between levels 2 and 3 where there's a lot of room for them to grow and learn in order to become a better player and either reach their desired rank or possibly level 4 in the hierarchy. But, like I said, tilting halts this learning process because of the way emotional dysregulation disrupts player access to the consciously competent skills they've built in level 3 of the hierarchy. We need to learn some anatomy to explain this, so lock in. God, I wish I had a whiteboard. The amygdala, located at our brain's base, is a part of the limbic system and defines and regulates our emotions, among other things, including setting off the alarms that trigger our fight or flight response. This response is a lingering survival instinct from early humans who threw hands with dinosaurs and fire, I guess. But nowadays we face a lot more psychological threats, like the pressures of modern life or the irrational stress of tilt queuing ranked. And the emotions related to these things can sometimes trigger the amygdala to activate our fight or flight response. Our frontal lobes, however, handle reasoning and thinking and general rationality, and help our amygdala chill out by assessing perceived threats and determining the actual danger, of which there is none for going on a losing streak, by the way. However, the fight or flight response can override our frontal lobe's logic in what psychologist Daniel Goleman calls amygdala hijacking, which shuts down the lobes and disables rational responses, which is bad because our frontal lobes also contain our prefrontal cortex, which helps operate our working memory. Stay with me now. Our working memory, as opposed to our long-term memory, is our conscious mind and handles things like planning and comprehension and problem solving and the conscious skills that we associate with level 3 of the hierarchy of competence. If your working memory shuts down, those level 3 skills become inaccessible. This can happen due to the aforementioned amygdala hijacking or due to overactivity of your emotional system, since it can overload your working memory's processing limit. This is what causes the deterioration of your gameplay when you're tilted, because tilt is overactivity of the emotional system. But how can we prevent tilt from happening in the future? You don't. Which is obviously an acronym that stands for determine how you're feeling. What's your emotional reaction? How is your body reacting? Increasing your self-awareness and mindfulness can allow you to clarify and manage your emotions and then take the next step towards untilting, which is to observe your triggers. Now that you know what you're feeling, figure out why you're feeling that way. I'm angry and shaky because a teammate flamed me. I'm dejected and drained because I'm on a losing streak. Having this information then allows you to nurture a new perspective. Your expectations are probably way out of line with what's actually in your control, and that will make you tilt hard. Losing a game where you were ahead until the last fight might make you wonder if your teammates were dropped on their heads as infants, but you can't change your teammates and you can't change the loss. Them's just the facts. You can, however, adjust your expectations. You can't change teammates, but you can coordinate plays with them or communicate suggestions about how to turn a game around. You can't change a loss, but you can establish progression markers that you're proud of beyond winning, like kill participation or damage mitigated. This is part of what I mean by this last step, which is to take positive action. A study from UC Irvine in 2021 surveyed esports players on the topic of tilt, with one segment discussing the responses to tilt. While some players chose to do nothing or responded negatively to tilt, the most common course of action was to take a break, followed by more positive responses like self-regulation or self-reflection. Now, I'm no esports player, nor is what I'm about to tell you scientifically backed, but I do have my own various ways of responding positively to tilt, which I'd like to share with you now. When I'm starting to see signs of tilt, I first ask myself these 3 questions that I kind of mentioned before. Am I having fun? If not, am I winning or making progress towards my goals? If not, am I at least learning? If I answer yes to at least one of these, I let myself keep playing, but only if I apply the don't tilt framework while doing so. In other words, being mindful of my mental and my expectations and taking positive actions to prevent tilt. However, if I start to notice that I'm feeling like shit and I'm triggered and all my answers to those questions turn to no, then I am officially tilted and it is time for a reset. This reset can come in the form of a bathroom break, or getting some snacks and some water, or stretching before queuing up again. Personally, I like a little bit of this, maybe a bit of this, maybe some of these. And as with all stretches, do these very gently, just to the point where you can feel the stretch without straining yourself. Not only does this help with bodily fatigue from long gaming sessions, but it also helps me personally with letting my frustration out physically in a healthy manner, and allowing myself to have time to think about my gameplay and how I can improve in the next match. Usually I'll check in with myself after this little reset to see if I'm actually ready to play some more games, but if I notice that I'm still in a negative mindset, I will take more drastic measures. The first of which is to log off. Just go and close the client and step away from your PC and go do something else. But what else is there to do, you might ask? My first recommendation for ways to untilt is to take an everything shower, and if you don't know what that is, you could probably use one. And it essentially means to take a shower with all the extra steps included, like shaving your legs if that's something you do, or using a body scrub or a hair mask, or even just straight up taking a nice bath. This everything shower is just meant to feel extra nice after a really bad day of comp, like you're washing away the sins of your teammates and the memories of your jungler's missed smites. But if it's one of those days where you're not really feeling up for the whole shower shebang, even one of those little Korean face masks can feel really nice. My second recommendation is to just make yourself a little drinky drink. Sometimes for me, this just means refilling my water bottle with some nice ice cold water, but it could also be a fancy little mocktail or some hot chocolate or some tea. It's also probably a good idea to pair this with a snack or maybe even a whole meal, because I just know that some of you forget to feed yourselves while you're hours deep into playing a game. I do the same sometimes, but do as I say, not as I do. Once acquiring some proper sustenance, I personally either like to cozy up with a non-competitive game or to catch up on some reading. For gaming as of late, I've enjoyed returning to some cozy classics like Stardew Valley for the 1.6 update and Minecraft as well, but I also recently discovered a love for roguelites, so I've been playing a lot lot of Ember Knights and Hades. But if you want to break from gaming entirely, then reading might be the route for you. Me personally, I've been slacking on my reading as of late, but I do host a book club in my Discord server that anyone can join. We vote on and read one book a month, and it's been a really good time so far, so I encourage anyone interested in that to come on down. But let's say you read your books, and you made your drink, and you took your shower, and you're still not feeling up to cue another comp game. At that point, it might just be time to call it a night. A good night's rest is the greatest reset you can get, as it can help you process the information you've learned throughout the day and help prevent negative emotional reactivity, setting you up to tilt less tomorrow. At the end of the day, even if some people consider it just a game, tilt happens, and the emotions that arise as a result of it are valid. What's important is not letting them overwhelm you or get to a point where you're taking it out on other people, because games are meant to be fun and rewarding for everyone. So remember, if you're starting to feel tilted, just don't. Fun fact about filming this video, the first time that I tried shooting it, I spent about 2 hours filming, only to find out later that the footage I got was completely unusable because of the audio, and so I had to reshoot. And because of that, I got really, really tilted at first. I was feeling angry and upset because obviously I wasted a lot of time doing something that I wanted to get done, and then also I couldn't reshoot that same day because my camera battery died, and also the sun was going down, so I didn't have good lighting. But at some point, amidst feeling upset, I just realized, like, I can't do anything about it now. That really sucks. We'll shoot again tomorrow. And so I packed up my camera, I changed into some comfy clothes, I got myself a little drinky drink, and I hopped on my PC and just played games for the rest of the night. And after a good night's rest, I filmed the next day and everything was fine. If I can do it, you can do it too. It'll be okay.